record to the cloud. All right, guys. So good evening. We'll start, and we'll just basically talk about the last couple of sessions of class. Like I was saying a couple moments ago, we're down to about 3 classes. We have tonight. We don't have class on Thursday, and then the next week we basically are in finals mode. And so anyone that knows of or is doing this for the first time, so that you're not overwhelmed by multiple finals in one day. Let's say you take Tuesday, Thursday night classes. It's going to be way too much for students to take 2 or 3 finals in one day on a Tuesday and Thursday night. So the college is going to basically designate certain days for certain time slots of classes to do their finals, so that no student is impacted with like more than one in one day, if that makes sense. So it's kind of spread out. So it's like, oh, well, if we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're basically going to meet on, December the 9th, December 2nd, December 9th for like X amount of time. And then we're basically done. That's our schedules for finals for those that have schedules for finals, right? So for some subjects, you guys might have a test. For things that are non-art or non-design related, they're typically tests or some final assessment of some sort, or reports, or some type of like collection of work. In our classes and in graphic design classes, from what I'm hearing lately, is that we just basically put together a portfolio of your project. So that's what we're going to do. We're basically putting together the last, 16 something weeks of school, and we're basically putting it together into one nice and neat package. So that's basically our final. So we're going to sort, we're going to organize, we're going to put everything together into one. And I'm launching it before Thanksgiving to give everyone time to catch up, make changes, adjustments, to basically, if you're behind on a grade, this is your chance to get caught up in the class, if that makes sense. So that's more than enough time, I would say, because we have after today, we basically have from now until December the 9th, or after tonight's class, tomorrow, technically, from tomorrow, November 24th until December 9th, to put together your portfolio. So that's way extra time. That's enough time, but that gives you enough time to catch up, make changes, maybe do a deeper dive on the logo project or any other project, or catch up on anything that you feel like you want to rework. You'll have an opportunity to do that between now and the 9th of December, okay? And that's Thursday, December the 9th, if I understand correctly, which is going to be from 6:30 to 9:30. So that's our normal time slot. That'll be our final class, but chances are we'll probably be possibly done before then. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes on December the 7th when we kind of check in. So, I have a feeling December 2nd, we might be pretty close to being done, / December 9th, just any final check-ins or questions, or who knows, maybe some type of meetup or something like that. We get to decide. We'll find out more information as we get closer. We'll see where everyone's at as we start off December. So that's going to be our game plan. That's how we're kind of operating. Okay. And if you have any projects that are missing, or anything that you may have skipped, or just something that scheduling wise, life happened and you just missed it, here's your chance to get those projects in. Okay. Videos are available. All details are all uploaded. Everything is online for you to catch up. And if you've been tracking and you've been pretty much turning in your projects and everything's going relatively well, then this final portfolio will be pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and just formatting and templating and putting things together. Okay, so it'll be a smooth transition either way. All right, so let's talk about that briefly, and then we'll go into the logo. So portfolios are pretty important. There's so many different ways to basically process a portfolio. Graphic designers typically, when they are showcasing work, especially when it comes to jobs, you basically want to understand a notion of a portfolio, right? When I was in college, portfolios were basically books, leather books that you printed, cut, and mounted to showcase. Today, it's a little bit more like a iPad or a device or a website, or combination of thereof. So you typically get something along those lines to kind of showcase. So it's a lot more digital than I was back in the day, but I still have my leather portfolio. So I'll probably pull it out of the garage so you guys can see it. It's definitely a little embarrassing because when I graduated, it was like, oh gosh, this is not good, but it was something. So I'm a little hesitant to kind of like deep dive it, but I'll put myself out there. I'll show you guys. I'll showcase it. You know, it is what it is, but you got to start somewhere. But when I look back, I go, wow, my work was like really bad. So I'm gonna definitely, well, I'm too hard on myself. So I will. You can decide for yourself. We'll see how that goes. All right, so December the 9th is basically where we're gonna get everything set up. And we're gonna compile all the projects here on a list, but I'll show you graphically what those projects are. It's your best designs into a structured PDF portfolio, okay? And some of those projects we'll showcase in just a few moments, but there's a good number of them. And don't worry, I have a template. It looks amazing, and it's a lot of plug and play, so you'll be well equipped, okay? Once upon a time, I had a little bit more design and function into it, but today it's a little bit easier with existing templates and things of that sort. When we're done, obviously we're going to do the typical things: checking your writing, checking spelling, checking designation of pages, contact information. I basically would like to have it be like a Google slide so that you guys can share some of the work with potential clients in the future. Maybe if you're signing up for an internship, you can use that link to showcase some of your designs. There's definitely been students that have taken some of their work in this class and even their other classes and have gotten their foot in the door with an interview or even an internship. So I would love this to have function in that way, where you can basically have something that you can share online, download it. You can download it, you can showcase it in just about any way, shape, or form. So that's the idea behind that. We'll have titles, descriptions. We will obviously save it as a PDF, or you can share your link with Google Slides. And of course, you'll have it stored away. So it's going to be really helpful for you guys to share it with yourself, or email yourself, or copy the template with your own personal email, so that when you're done with Rail, you have something available floating around in your personal email. So we'll have that, okay? We don't have to worry about exit procedures quite just yet. I used to have a whole exit procedure of when we were in person of covering Macs and computers. So you don't have to worry about that stuff. All you have to do is really just turn in the file. So you don't have to clean up anything in person or shut down computers or dust or clean or wipe or anything of that sort. However, next semester you'll probably see that, since the night classes will be in person next semester from what I'm hearing. So the rumor is that it's going to definitely be in person for next semester, okay? So, and then the day classes are going to be online from what I'm hearing. So I think that's what I'm hearing. So it could be, it's liable to change at any point, but definitely check the online catalog just to make sure that it's online or in person, okay? But the word on the street is that night classes will be back in person for next semester. So keep an eye out there. And again, portfolios are just really important to look back on your work, see what you've done in terms of just the quality of the work, artifacts. It's all showcasing your skills, your learning, diversity of your projects, basically. And I hope that we got enough diversity into the projects where you can showcase things from a Disney graphic point to something as diverse as like a SOAR or Chicano to Minimalist. Pretty wide range of things that we kind of narrowed it down by, but flexing a lot of the thinking and the creative problem-solving process, okay? And the samples of your portfolios will definitely be structured in a certain way, so we'll show you that in a moment, but typically sometimes it could be structured as a single item on a page, or you can tile them very neatly on your page and sort them out so that things are aligned. When something lines up with something else, it looks a lot cleaner, a lot more structured. So structure is helpful. And I always like to think of a portfolio as kind of like art on a wall. whenever you go to a museum and you see art hanging on the wall, there's always like the work, the paintings, or whatever the object is, the design, and or a frame, and then you have like this little descriptor or title like aligned very close to the object, right? And if you have multiple paintings on a wall, they're centered on the wall sometimes, and they are lined up very neatly across so that you can kind of see an arrangement. So think about your pages, your design, or the portfolio slides themselves. That's kind of like walls in a building, and you're putting your work and your descriptions neatly on that wall for everyone to see. Does that kind of make sense? And so you always want to just showcase it very neatly at the end of the day. I know there's different formats and different ways to showcase work, and there's and we're always pushing boundaries and things of that sort. But when you're trying to get your foot in the door to get a job, to get your career started, the less distracting, the more organized, the better, because you want to make sure that you're showcasing your work in the best light possible, and order and structure and alignments are key. Okay, so if you have 4, 6, 2, 8, even number of projects, think about aligning them up symmetrically. If they're odd numbers, then think about lining them up asymmetrically, meaning one object is sort of your focal point, which could typically be like your best piece, and then you have the remaining work as sort of equal scale, equal sizing, and sort of sized properly to scale, if that makes sense. So whether it's symmetrical or asymmetrical, there's always going to be, symmetrically, there's typically going to be a balance and an order to things. This would be like a good example of symmetrical, because there's 6 t-shirts on a page, and things are scaled evenly, very structured across the page. But if you have things that are asymmetrical, which is sort of like, slightly odd, or 5s or 7s, you can order them asymmetrically where something's the focal point. Typically, that's like your best work, and you can kind of showcase all the other pieces accordingly. So, and these are like some actual samples of some of my work digitally that I've made, throughout the years that I showcase, when I was, like post Disney, pre-teaching stages and things like that. So I would order things very, very neatly, very clearly, so that the work shown for itself. These were hoodies that we did back in the day at Loungefly to indicate like pattern repeats and things of that sort. Just clean, just minimal, and just very straightforward. No disorganization, as it were, right? And we have organized alignments. Like I said, the image on the left here looks a lot more structured, a lot less noisy and distracting versus like the graphic on the right. And so alignment basically means that when you're putting items on a page, you always want to make sure that it's aligned properly, meaning that if I were to draw like a line across the top, see how like those blue squares are aligning perfectly to the top, almost like there's an imaginary line on the side here, or on the left alignment of there. And you notice how if I just drew these red lines, there's kind of like this sort of hidden structure happening. And so alignments are a great way to create order and structure in your design, and so that you can make design decisions based off that hidden structure. And we kind of mentioned it briefly in the minimalist poster, how structure is very helpful, right? When there's no structure, then obviously the viewer gets confused, like, wait, where's the line? Am I going here? Am I going there? This is not lining up to there. There's almost sort of like you're signaling to them chaos, if that makes sense. And so if you're signaling chaos, then they're going to kind of assume that there's chaos to come, right? So if the theme is to be chaotic, then yeah, you can totally go that direction. But if the idea is to present our work clearly in the shortest amount of time possible, like let's say a hiring manager, then you want to be clear to the point, because they're looking at tons of other work of other students and other projects, and you just want to be very clear and concise when you're showcasing your work. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm a big believer, and I've been the hirer, right? Like I've done management, I've worked in that area before. And so, I always, like in less than 10 seconds, it's hard to say, to say that, but like typically in a few moments, if there's if there's not something I don't see that looks appealing or interesting within that first, like, 10, 15 seconds, then even if it's one piece, like, if I don't see it, then I normally just like, pass it on and go to the next applicant. And so hiring managers really know what they want. And again, this is more, I'm talking in terms of like career, because even though I could say, oh, this is how I want it as a class, I'm really coming from the point of view of a hiring manager, if that makes sense, right? So if I was hiring you guys for a project, then I would, say, okay, well, if you're going to show me your work, I want it concise, organized, descriptions, show me this work. Let's get to the point, because I don't have time to look at every piece of design that's out there, right? And so the cleaner, the more concise, the best pieces, your strongest work, the stuff you're proud of, you want to showcase that as clearly as possible, right? And so we're pretty vicious when it comes to this world. Like, I think I'm more of a puppy dog when it comes to hiring. Like, I actually give people a little bit of benefit of the doubt, and I look at the work. Where I become very hardcore and vicious is in my background checks, which is a super side note. But basically, if the work looks good, I actually like Google people's names to see if they're public on social media, and I look at their Facebooks, I look at their YouTube channels, and you'll be surprised how many people didn't get hired because they have a YouTube channel and they were talking about like how much pot they smoked on a certain day of the week, and I'm just like, probably not a good idea to leave that up there, So social media is real, and if you're public, you always want to be very cautious of what you showcase. So every now and again, Google your name, Google yourself, make sure that your past doesn't come back to haunt you, if that makes sense. And so very helpful stuff too, right? So put your social medias on private mode if you can, Facebook on private, Instagram on private, TikTok on private, because all that stuff will definitely come back to haunt you if you get some smart managers that know that time is money. And so, I know interviews are one way of doing it, but sometimes we can even skip the interview and just background check you and know more about you than you know about yourself based off your postings. And so, so there's that reality, right? So the more you can present yourself in the best light, the more you can showcase your work, publish your work, maybe have a website of your work uploaded, right? Really helpful tools to kind of get you showcased in the future. So that's powerful stuff to have at the end of the day, okay? And like I said, alignment, going back to kind of the portfolio, alignment is key. And so make sure that everything is lined up properly so we can showcase it. So let's talk about some of the projects, shall we? And see like what kind of things we're gonna have for your portfolio, okay? First thing we want to include in the portfolio, and actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you the actual template. I'll save you a minute and I'll show you the template itself, so that way we can kind of like actually break it down for you. So if we go to Canvas and go into the week of, so this is our symbol, which is our logos. Let's go down to assignments. Okay, and we go down the list here. We'll notice at the very bottom, week 16 final portfolio. We have our final portfolio, final assignment here at the very bottom. When you click onto that, there'll be a link, which is the template link. You will click onto the very top link here, which it says make a copy, digital illustration portfolio template. And when you click there, it's going to ask you to enter your credentials for your Real Hondo Gmail or your personal Gmail, where you're going to basically get a copy of the template. Okay, so it'll basically say make a copy. That's going to basically verify and ensure that you made a copy. So I'm pushing it so that you guys have to make a copy of your template, right? So when you make a copy, you will have the template available to you. And I've done the heavy lifting for you, so feel free to change the template any way you want. You can change the style, the colors, the design. Pretty much, you can make any type of change that you wish, okay? And it's gonna have a number of different slides here as it's preloading. one of which is going to be obviously your cover slide, which is your name. So you're going to enter your name. You are the graphic designer. So you're going to basically showcase yourself as a graphic designer. There is a sort of about me section, which is a short description about who you are in like 2 or 3 sentences, like, you know, what's your passion, how many years have you worked in this. You can include education experience, okay, personal experiences and things like that. If you've been drawing since you were 5, then mention since the age of 5, you've been doing this for like 15, 20 years, right? So include the earliest time you've been designing, okay? And I always like to throw in a little sentence about just personal preference and hobbies and things like that, just to kind of lighten things up a bit and just say what I like to build some personality. I don't want to seem too one-sided. I do want to have some interest. So I do want to like mention things that I like to do in my personal time to kind of build connection with the viewer. This is just a very simple slide talking about skills and expertise. Like if I had to say, well, I'm really focused on something, I'm a lot more focused in graphic design, digital imaging, brand strategies. So this little information graphic just helps to see like where your skills are most focused in, right? So I have a lot of skills in graphic design. And so I'm going to have that. If I have some marketing skills, I'm going to maybe mention social media, or I'll change, you know, digital imaging a little bit, and I'll put another field that I'm like photography, that I'm very focused in that. So whatever the range is, you're just mentioning skill sets, and this is just a very super simple way of just really showcasing like where you're really big on the skills are, right? I'm really big on graphic design skills. That's what I'm going for. If I'm big on photographs and photography, then you're going to change the scale of the photo of the circle, and it's clickable, it's editable, and you can increase the scale as easy as grabbing a node and pulling up and down. Okay, so all these are editable and ready to go. And as for the work, I've already inputted the templates. So the project that you're going to include are the principles of design. So if you guys remember, we did the 10 slides and wrote about the principles of design and went really deep into it. Include a couple of slides from that project in this individual slide. So you can take a screenshot of those slides. And basically these are clickable. So these are your best slides, I would say, your best 2 slides from that project. And you're basically going to place it right here in the template. Fun little tip: if you take a screenshot and then right-click the image, like this top image here for the portfolio, then you can basically go down to, if you right-click and then go to replace image, then you can basically upload and replace the image instantly in the same place and location. So no resizing required. All you would have to do is just screenshot, right-click, replace image, and upload, and it will instantly upload and cover it automatically, right? So it'll resize it for you, and it'll save you some time, which is very, very helpful. So I'll just use a random graphic that's on my desktop that I used today for the, I think I did like a quick screenshot of like a virtual event, and right, creative futures in design and art. So this is like a presentation by Otis College of Art. I screenshot the flyer, I right-click, I upload it, instantly plug and paste it and resize it into that exact location. So it's really helpful. So definitely think about that. Right-clicking and uploading is going to save you a lot of time in a portfolio, okay? So it's going to be very, very helpful to kind of do that, and we'll keep that in mind, okay? I also have the Illustrator Tools project here. So if you recall, that was that one slide where you labeled all the parts. So we're going to basically make sure that you include that, okay? So we want to make sure that you labeled the tools and the parts, accomplished the work, understood that. So you'll upload that slide, okay? Notice too that on the left, it talks about the purpose of the exercise. So a brief description of what the purpose of this exercise was. Hint, hint. You'll see it in the previous assignments, what the intentions and the focuses are, and they're basically under the objectives, right? So if the objective is to compile 20 weeks of your best work, every assignment has an objective. Hint, hint. That's where your purpose will be found. Does that make sense? So that's going to basically be where you're going to refer to your purpose of the project. Okay, what was the purpose? Well, that was the goal. That was the objective. Okay, and we'll include that into the portfolio. If you want to go a little bit deeper into the description, you can. You can talk a little bit about personal experience, what you thought, how you felt, totally fine. Minimum is when we want to get the objective in there, okay? And what was the intent of the project? Pixel art, I believe we did this. We did some pixel art and we designed that. So we want to take a couple of those graphics. If you have those available, if you want to recreate them, feel free, it's totally fine. The pixel art is just an exercise to kind of get you guys familiar with vector versus raster images, and we put a little creative mix into that. So you can include an image or two, and again, these are clickable, and you can right-click and replace those images or add them on. So feel free to do that as well for this particular slide. Okay. Pen tool exercises. We did a number of pen tool exercises. So for these pen tool exercises, you can include the best ones. We did 4 different slides. So you can include pen tool exercise 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, and 4. But definitely include the best ones, right? So wherever those completed tasks are, definitely you can take a quick snapshot of those and include it as well. But we'll have those pen tool exercises uploaded as well, okay? And so we'll have those slides. So we'll have pen tool exercise number 1, number 2, number 3. I didn't label them as such. You get to pick from the 4, but you basically have 3 slides where you can upload that as well, okay? Faces exercise, abstract vector painting. Those were the lovely faces that we did with our brush tool. Include that. So we want to take a couple of those favorite faces that you had, 1 or 2, maybe or more if you feel comfortable, but take the best ones that you felt that you created from that brush tool and throw that in there as well. Okay, advanced vector tracing. Now we're getting a little bit deeper into it. So the Mickey graphic or that special graphic that you personally traced, because everyone had different characters. I know a few folks went Disney character, but not so much Mickey based, but whatever that primary graphic was for the advanced pen tool exercise, you're gonna include that image into this slide, okay? So we wanna see the quality of the artwork. I would say when it comes to employment, this would probably be slide number 1 in showcasing the work. Because it shows, hey, look at my tracing ability. I can pen tool like really well, and that's production. That signals that you can produce artwork, and that's valuable stuff you can do, because that type of artwork creation can lead to T-shirts, right? And designing production-ready T-shirts or laser cutting artwork, like it's a transferable skill, so you can definitely switch from one to the other. Okay. So I would say from an employer standpoint, they're going to start looking at this stuff and see like, well, how does this person do when it comes to tracing? Or how does this person do and when it comes to mastering their Adobe Illustrator techniques? This would be a good way of showcasing it, because to me, it would say, oh yeah, they really know how to multi-layer. They really know how to sort of build production-ready artwork. This is someone I could potentially hire to create products, and those products can lead to graphics, T-shirts. The T-shirt is more, it's the universal product, I guess you can say, but we take this T-shirt as a big signal of other things that you can produce: bags, products, physical items, anything that's printable, anything that can be screen printed onto a fabric. That's a lot of product that can be available. It's almost like half the fashion industry if you really think about it. So that's part of the reason why I created the T-shirt project, because it's a universal project that skill transfers in a lot of different industries. So if I can see you could design a T-shirt, hopefully in the brain of a hiring manager, they can say, oh, you know what? They can create artwork on a T-shirt. I could use this person to draw for packaging perhaps. And so it's something that you can create at the end of the day. T-shirt, we want to get your T-shirts. So some of you guys have that one T-shirt included in this slide. If you turned in more than one T-shirt, 2 or 3, included in this slide, okay? We want to see those designs up close and personal. And again, these are all right-clickable and editable, but we definitely want to make sure that we got to get a chance to include the purpose and showcase that work, okay? And again, you can screenshot it, that's totally fine, but we can include that as well, okay? Minimalist poster will include, of course, that image that you created. This semester, we did not do the write-up for that. So I'm going to knock that out, and you can include the poster and any type of thumbnail sketches that you created, okay? So you are totally okay to skip the written synopsis portion of it. but we definitely want to see that graphic and place that in there, okay? And definitely the thumbnail sketches if you have that. If you lost the thumbnail sketches, then recreate it, maybe refer back to email if you emailed it to me, but definitely look into it so then that way we can showcase it. We want to be able to see that you have thought about the design and then was able to transfer it. So this basically shows that you are thumbnail sketching, that you understand that principle and concept / I can create the artwork to final, okay? And so there's that project as well for Minimalist poster. If you had more than one poster, not everyone did, but if you wanted to showcase more than one, then this template would be the one to go with if you have more than one. If not, totally delete that. This slide, you're okay there, okay? And then of course, our corporate identity or logo project, that's gonna be our final slide. We're gonna put your logo into this slide, of course. If you have some sketches, those thumbnail sketches, include that, of course. And we're basically gonna place it all there where it will touch up and finalize to a lovely final slide, which would have some type of contact information. You can include your school email. You do not have to include your personal email. But if, let's say you ever do have a hiring manager interview, then change it to your personal email, right? We wanna make sure that you get an email and that way you can put it all together there. And if you have a website, hey, you can include the website or your social media link if you're using that to brand yourself, that's totally okay. And you can even change the graphic to a drawing, an illustration, a photo, something that is symbolic of you and who you are. If you're from San Francisco, maybe San Francisco or something of that sort. Obviously, let it be appropriate. I always have to just disclaim that, right? Appropriate, tasteful, something related to the graphic design field, showcases your photography, your drawing, things of that sort. And yes, you guys did so much work this semester within 16 weeks. It's crazy when you see it all put together into this book, but you got about 20 something slides worth of stuff, guys. You did a lot. You did so much within that time frame. It almost feels like you just started. So yeah, so it snowballs into one giant snowman, and you guys put that effort into it. So that's why I want to give you guys some time to during the break and to basically kind of get settled, get caught up. Once the turkey, settles in and the food coma goes away on Friday, if you're not doing Black Friday shopping, hey, why don't you log in and maybe put in a little bit of time in your portfolio and get a head start. It's never a bad thing, or catch up on a project that you maybe wish you put more time in. Here's your opportunity to catch up, okay? So I try to make it as easy as possible. And mind you, if we were in person, we would be printing this stuff out and mounting it onto a book on blackboards. So if you're complaining, dude, don't, because if you retake this class next semester, you will wish you had me again, because you would be printing and mounting and putting it all up on boards, okay, like at 9 o'clock at night. So a little perspective is helpful. And I know, because I stayed up late putting my books together, and I'm so jealous because you don't have to do any of that stuff now. But I do remember times where I pulled all-nighters putting my book together. It was crazy. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't recommend it. But I was 20, so what are you gonna do? So questions, comments about the portfolio? It's worth 100 points. It's basically everything you've done. So it's an easy 100 if you've been turning your work in, okay? And everything is perfectly packaged and wrapped and ready to go, okay? So if you have a question, you can type it in, or if you want to voice it in, feel free. But I want to make sure that I leave a little bit of space for anyone that might have that, okay? So any questions about anything about the projects, assignments, portfolio, anything of that sort? It should be pretty straightforward for the most part, if not pretty easy, I would say. So making sense overall? Yes? Cool, thumbs up emoji if that makes sense for you guys. Yeah, you should definitely applaud yourself. You guys did a lot. And for those folks that are almost done or are missing an assignment or two, you still have a lot of time. You still have plenty of time to catch up, okay? So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged if they're behind. You have time, okay? You have roughly 3 weeks if you really think about it, right? So that's really good. Right? Some professors will only start by the time you get back, and you only have a week and that's it, and forget it, you know, like it is what it is, right? I try to be strategic, and I try to give you guys some opportunity to catch up, okay? So 3 weeks to catch up is, dude, like more than enough time, I would say. Okay. All right. I think that's fair. All right. Very cool. So why don't we do this? Shall we take a 5-minute break, and then we will go logo check mode? Yeah. Because I know you guys have been online a little bit more before me, but I want to honor your time. So let's take a quick 5-minute break. Okay. And when we get back, we will look and review and talk about logos and jump into some breakout rooms and see where you guys are at in your design process. Okay. All right. We'll see you in 5. All right, guys. Okay, so a couple of things to keep in mind before we jump into the reviews. We're going to take a look at some of the logo designs, and definitely looking forward to it. Before we go into it, how many of you guys got a chance to have at least a digital on Illustrator? Like you've converted some artwork onto Illustrator, and you have a digital version of your logo. If you can get a little thumbs up emoji, or if you can set it up, that'd be great. But I'm curious to see, who do we have out there that has some digitals that they're ready to go? Okay. Okay, so a few of us out there. Okay, so we'll go over that in just a few seconds, but we will review that. Basically, tonight we'll be working on rendering and digitizing the logo, and that's it. And then we're going to basically be placing it in there. Okay, so a couple of quick things I'll bring to mind when it comes to processing your logo. And our little Roblox player is here next to me, so you'll probably hear him a little bit going off. So let me move this slide over here on this screen so we can have that up, right? Okay, okay. Little bit more calmly, okay? Okay. Very excited to. So first thing we'll talk about is the process, okay? It's exactly the same as your minimalist poster, if that makes sense. So the way you created your artwork is in the same format as you would create your logo, right? So if you guys remember, there's 2 ways we could do it. We can scan a drawing that you created, and you can literally pen tool that or trace your drawing, your artwork into the program. And that's basically one way where you're taking that illustration, making closed vector objects, and creating those graphics, right? And so you could do it in that particular sense. And that would be, you know, scanner, a photo. You can use your cell phone now to basically create those graphics. And after you redraw, then you would incorporate a font or a typeface from the font or font squirrel, and you make those small changes or modifications. And what I mean small is that you're basically applying, according to your concept, the different variations of your design, right? So if I had to go back briefly to my my slide over here, and not the logo design tricks, but the design strategies, then the hope would be that you have, you know, at least one of some of these strategies drawn, but have selected maybe 1 or 2 to recreate digitally on Illustrator, if that makes sense. So at some point, I hope that we had a moment to think about the strategies, like the shape containers, the typographic or the symbolic, or the mark and the little logo type, or the small mark and big logo type, underline, overline, unified shape, mark within a logo type. These are all on the field for you to play with, right? And so if you take all the logos that are out there in the world, it comes down to these 9, right? And they come into these 9 categories. So it's not as scary to create a logo if you know what the principles are, where the 9 principles are for that format, and you just focus in on 1 or 2 per. Easily you can get 9 to 18, right? 1 strategy per, that's 9 different concepts. You know, that's a pretty good output for being a first-year student, right? If you do 2 per concept or 2 per strategy, okay, easy, buddy. 2 per concept, then you could totally get to 18 or 20 in one sitting, right? And I think that's something that we don't talk about as designers. We do not talk about like how fast we can get something out the door, but I think speed is related to principle. So if you know what your principles are, you know specifically what the 9 strategies are, you are ready to always do these 9 forever in your career. Does that make sense? The only thing that is not included is the logo system. And we saw that in one of our videos last week by Michael Beirut. The system is not out there, but the system is designed to basically work for everything. And that's kind of really the fancy way of saying that it should work for all formats, right? And I briefly mentioned that, and I will in just a few moments with that. So there's those 9 strategies. Rewind, we go back and we basically know that we have our scan it, redraw it, font, small changes, okay? Very similar to t-shirts in some ways. Very similar to t-shirts in some ways, right? And so we're just simplifying it down to a single mark, a single font of the sort. Does that kind of make sense, guys? And so we've been doing it in a different type of project, but you have the skill set to bring it down to one graphic, one typeface, okay? So I've been constraining you more and more to get down to this level, okay? We also have the search for the icon in Google. So we did that for Minimalist Poster. In the Minimalist Poster, we searched for a graphic online. You found a simplistic version of it, or you went to Vecteezy and found something similar to that. And we basically allowed image trace or pen tool to help us create the graphic, right? And then we sort of reverse engineered it, fine-tuned the design, and basically made edits from there. And so there's that format in creating the logo as well, okay? And once we have those images drawn or that main concept, then we add that font, that final step, which is sort of like the font that sort of relates to everything. But for some, I know that some projects, some students will probably have a logo face or a logo type font or logo type logo. And the logo type is basically going to be, you know, your logo type, but modified in a certain way. So curious to see what you created for tonight and see what kind of mark you created. Is it a logo type? And if so, what was that font? And did you take into consideration and think about the symbolism and the reasoning for that font? Okay. And well, I'm not going to get into symbolism, but it's a huge factor when it comes to developing your logo. Okay. And then you fine tune. You just improve, and improve, right? You try different variations. Okay. I have a drawing, I have a logo. So let's try some different positioning. Maybe the graphic or the mark is on the left. Typeface is on the right. Maybe it's typeface on the left and then logo marks on the right. Maybe you have the mark, the big mark or the symbol above, and then you have your typeface on the right below that. But try variations, and I would recommend copying and pasting and making those slight shifts and seeing them on screen. I'm a big believer in copying and pasting to compare. So set yourself up for success by making comparisons. And you'll be surprised how one slight movement or reposition can make a big difference in the final product. So you want to make sure that you have an understanding that variation is really important. And you always want to just copy and paste and make changes, copy and paste and make changes. Because if you leave it to your memory to remember the small details, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're not going to remember all the details, right? Especially with life. Personal life things, projects, pandemics, you name it. Like anything and everything can happen. And then you want to be cautious of that and by copying and pasting. Okay, it's okay, buddy. All right. So remember the rules. Be sure to entice, right? Who's your audience? If you're Red Bull, and it's going to be a predominantly male audience, a single man in his 20s. Working full time and is high school educated, loves sports and is adventurous, chances are you probably want the masculine and powerful logo versus the fun and cute version of Red Bull, right? And that's a scary day when we have Red Bull for kids, because you don't need that. So we have that. So keep in mind, who is the person viewing your logo, right? And will it be attractive, enticing to your target? Be unique, okay? Remember, it should be memorable. It's okay. It should be memorable. So be distinct, be different. It shouldn't be cliche, although you can start there, but you don't want to finish there. Okay. And so be mindful of memorability, what makes it memorable. And those strategies, those 9 different strategies will allow you to get to the memorable portion of it, because they're tried and true approaches to creating a logo. Okay, timeless, we said. When you focus on the 9, you avoid the trendy and all the design trends of the era. Depends. Sometimes it actually will trend back to something that is timeless. But for most, be cautious that trends do creep into logos, and you'll see real quick if something is from the 90s or 2000s or 80s, unless that's your original intent. That's something to kind of think about. Okay. So new is good, right? Trends can be good for a time, but be selective, be wise about it as well. Simplicity is always key, so keep it simple. Okay, one thing, one message. Or as we saw in some of the logo tricks, if you're using negative spaces, you can say 2 things. One with the positive, dark, area, or the filled in areas are black. And then we have the, negative space or negative area that can be used to kind of communicate those 2 messages. Or in other words, going back to the Logo Australia piece that we saw not too long ago, the Logo Australia design, which I have on screen here, which is Awesome Logo Tricks, Yoga Australia. It's positive, the yoga person performing yoga, and then the negative space is Australia, right? So if you're trying to really communicate 2 things at one time, this approach of using positive negative space is sort of a secret weapon, I would say, in design. Like if we could ever create something along these lines, you will always wow and entice the customer, your viewer, your person, and it's going to be really, really, it'll make a statement, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it'll be successful every time, but it will be it'll be a good selection to kind of flow with, and a good option to kind of experiment with in your project. So if you have an idea, try it out. You never know. Okay, you never know if something's going to hit in your design. Okay, so simplicity is going to be key for that. Okay, all right. Consistency is key. So symbolism we talked about. So where do we have symbolism happening? Do we have the apple symbol, which represents knowledge? Do you know why you're putting symbolism and how you're placing symbolism into the logo? Right? If you're combining marks and it resembles a hamburger, it's a symbol that resembles something that looks like a hamburger. But there's symbolism at some point, right? What you see is what you get. It alludes to it. It kind of reminds me of something else. But what are the levels of symbolism that you're building in your logo, and is it consistent? Okay. And consistency is key. Balance is like your Microsoft logo on the left, where you have sort of like it almost feels like an island of graphic balancing with text. But again, going back to the principles, it'll keep you in balance. But sometimes an unbalanced logo could definitely be something that looks a little bit more larger on the graphic, or overly large, I would say, on the mark, and not enough balance on the font or lettering. Or you just typed the font without consideration and had really just slapped together the imagery. That's another factor too. So balance means font carefully selected, symbolism in the mark and the graphic, and not something that took 5 minutes to slap together. That would be, an unbalanced sort of piece, as it were. And I'll see it quickly, and most people will be able to see it very quickly. Okay. Consistency is a shape psychology too. Do you have a certain unified shape? If so, is there meaning behind that? Be aware, circles represent unity, community, completion. Squares are balance, professionalism, security. Triangles are power, masculinity, stability, right? These are psychological symbols that can be literal, or can be the graphic and the font kind of add to this massive graphic or piece, if that makes sense. So we want to be sort of mindful of that, okay? Fonts, like I said, does your font communicate a message, add to the message, have meaning behind it? Disney's font is literally a recreation of his signature, and there's meaning behind that, right? And so that's to show that it's his vision, his creation, but it is his signature modified at the end of the day. And so something that's elegant and dignified might be nice for a small private label, limited edition, something targeting a very specific audience. But at the end, the one mark that's supposed to communicate to all families is the Disney logo, and it's fun and creative. So what font talks or messages, signals to your viewer, your target viewer, your audience, the message that you're trying to communicate, and why do you believe that is? Okay. And I talked about negative space a few moments ago. The USA logo is a nice example of that, where the lettering is negative, positive black, the U and the A, the letters U and A. FedEx, we mentioned it before. If you look between the E and the X, you see an arrow. And the arrow represents, is a symbol of movement, that your package is always moving. So very, very powerful symbology happening there, and quite a nice impact, and still used to this very day, right? And so this logo is very old, but it's timeless. I wouldn't call it old. I would say it's timeless. Okay. So some people are like, their minds are blown because they just saw that for the first time or remembered that for the first time. Like, what? No way. Color has meaning. We talked about this too, psychology of color, right? What are the colors that you think you want to communicate emotionally, right? Is it red for warmth and energy? Is it blue for integrity and professionalism? Is it black for strong, formal, sophisticated? Or maybe orange for a social, adventurous? Or pink for, feminine, tranquil, and loving? And this is all within a Western context too. So this is in the West, okay? We go anywhere out across the world, it's gonna look a lot different. So if you ever travel to other parts of the country, other parts of the continent, other parts of the globe, take note that if you're designing or creating, that some of the context will be different for those eras, okay? And of course, grading is always a factor. So how are we grading this? Well, very simply, we're grading on illustration. So is your logo have some type of graphic element built into it? Okay, that's 20 points there. Does your logo have a font that sort of is echoing the art style in some way of the illustration? Do you have color choices, and are they apparent and have meaning behind them? Okay, and of course, presentation, we're going to turn this in obviously in our portfolio. So we're going to give you 20 points on that because you're going to throw it into your portfolio. And of course, effort. Did you take your time designing your logo? And the answer is yes, because we're online together. Okay. So that being said, okay. Uh-oh, wife is calling. Excuse me for a minute. We might have a situation here. Be right back, guys. Okay. All right, guys. I think we had a pulled muscle. And anyone who's ever pulled a muscle is probably going to feel that a little bit. So, okay. Exciting times. All right, I think we're done. So templates we'll worry about when we cross that bridge. I'm basically gonna allow you guys to turn it in the portfolio. There is a sort of format to turn it in the portfolio. It's an Illustrator file. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but basically we'll copy and paste your graphic onto that template in the blue square. So we'll guide you for that. And then files you can upload under first name, last name for Illustrator, and turn it in under that assignment post. Chances are you're probably going to mix and match with your portfolio. I'm okay with that. If we have some time, you can definitely upload onto the assignment page as an Adobe Illustrator file, and then copy and paste that, or create a screenshot and place it in your portfolio. Okay, so that was a mouthful, and we had some screaming to go along with it. So yay me. This is so odd. Today's so odd of a day. Anyways, so we'll go ahead and we'll go into breakout rooms, and we'll take a look at some of your designs, and we'll share a little bit and get that going. Okay. If you guys are not on the digital portion yet, please begin to develop the logo. Okay, so search for your primary graphic, add a font. Okay, and we're gonna basically try to build the graphic so we can get some feedback and input going for the next hour. So I'm gonna try to hustle for 60 minutes to kind of get as much input to you guys as possible. We'll set it up for breakout rooms. So if you got some digitals to show, or even a drawing that you want to clear and show that, we'll meet everybody in the breakout room, and then we'll go in that direction. Okay, so let me go ahead and create that. We'll get that going, and I'll call this our one-on-one. We'll call this a logo review. Okay, so we'll see you guys over there in just a few minutes. I'm going to stop the recording, so that should pretty much finish up for this evening, and then we are basically going to be reviewing. So let's go ahead and jump into the breakout rooms.